Alooma is your data pipeline as a service. It's fully managed and it's easy to set up in minutes. I'm going to show you how to add a new input for the first time, map that input to a table in Redshift, and then enrich the data before storing it in Redshift. So first in our plumbing screen, let's click Add an Input. Alooma allows you to ingest various kinds of data sources, including MySQL databases, Salesforce, Analytics, SDKs. We even have a REST endpoint for anything you don't see here. For now, I want to ingest some JSON lines I have in an Amazon S3 bucket. So let's create an S3 input. We'll call it new S3. We'll enter our credentials. And then I'm going to give it a file prefix so I have a subdirectory to pull files from directly. Another option here I want to check is if I want to have only the new files that are added to this directory or all the files that are there and new files in the future. I want to do all the files. Hit finish. And we're creating the new S3 input. Now that I've added my input, the data has begun streaming into Alooma. But since it has not yet been mapped to a table in Redshift, Alooma temporarily stores that data in our Restream Q, as you can see up here. Now this is a core component of Alooma's ability to make sure you never lose data. Any error at all, like a type conversion error, a transformation error, or even if your Redshift is unavailable for some reason, all of this data will go to our Restream Queue until the issues are fixed. Then the data can successfully be replicated to Redshift without any loss or duplication. Now, to map this data to a table in Redshift, I can use Alooma's mapper. We can handle nested fields, and if I click any of these fields, you can see the most frequent values at the right-hand side here. This serves as a really good gut check to make sure that the data makes sense. For structured data like MySQL or Salesforce, we can carry over the schema from the source, or you can customize it here. But since we need to map this still, I'm going to click our AutoMapper tool, and I can save myself the time and effort of creating a column name and adding a field type for every field you see here. So we've inferred it's an integer, a string, a timestamp, automatically based on the data we're seeing for semi-structured data like this. Now that I've mapped this, I need to create a new table or select an existing table. Let's create a new one. And then if I choose, I can actually have a primary sorted distribution key before I create the table. I'm going to create this. I'm going to apply my mapping. And now you can see this has been mapped successfully. Now, let's say one of my engineers forgot to include a certain field in these events, and I want to add it on my own. I can do so in our code engine. All right, let's add a new field and call it enriched. So event enriched equals I love Alooma. And then if I want to test this new code on any of the samples that I have on my stream, I can do so. So this is getting a sample from my input file. I can run a test. And oh shoot, you can see I have a syntax error. It's notifying me. Looks like I forgot to have a quote there. Let's run the test again. And now you can see I've added the field enriched. I love Alooma is right there. And I'm happy with this. I can deploy it onto my stream. My code has successfully been deployed, so all the new events coming through the system will have a new field in them called enriched. Now, you'll say, okay, well, this is a schema change. What happens if I go look at my mapper now for all the events coming through the system? You'll notice that I have a yellow dot instead of the green dot, which shows me I have some mapped fields which are green and some unmapped fields, like enriched, which is red. Now, I can do one of two things. I can manually map this myself, or I can auto-map this just like I did before. And you'll notice 100% of the values are I love Alooma. And you know what? For future schema changes, I don't really want to have to map this myself. So I'm going to change my mapping so it automatically detects this on its own without my involvement. I'm going to apply this. It's committing the changes, and I'm good to go. Finally, since I've mapped my input and added my enrichment to the code engine, we need to kick off the restream process to send all these events that were stored before I finished my mapping originally. So I'll go back to the plumbing screen. I'll click the Restream Q. I have 3.6 thousand events that need to go through, so I'm going to start this restream process. And you can see it adds a new input as if it's right there from the beginning. And it'll go through the same code engine, mapper, and ultimately end up in our Redshift cluster. Once this is all set up, you can check the health of your system in our dashboard. You can see notifications on the far right hand side, and you can see your latency and throughput on the left here. And I can actually receive a lot of this information in email alerts. I can choose if I want them in a digest email, which I can specify never, hourly, or daily, or I can choose to have them received as emails as they happen. Finally, I want to mention that we find it's a pretty good idea to keep a copy of all of your raw data before mapping it and before transformation, just in case. So we offer you the ability to store your inputs in your own Amazon S3 bucket in the raw format. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at support@alooma.com or join our community Slack channel and chat with us.